Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna, good evening. I hope you're all making absolute brilliant use of all of this free time that you have just now. Let me get us right into the mantras, into mantra 2 for tonight's discussion. This is the fourth session in our ongoing discussion of the Sri Isopanishad. Here is mantra 2. If you need to be reminded where you can download the text, send me a note and I'll make sure you get it. It's vedabase.io.
It's in their chat window.
And now it's in your chat window if you need it. All right, mantra 2 of Sri Isopanishad. Kurvan eveha karmani jijiviset chataham. Now that's that ch. There's two C's. It's almost like a choo-choo. Jijiviset chatam samaha evam tvayi nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. Kurvan eveha. You want to say it with me, you're welcome to. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishet chatam samaha evam tvayi nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. And with the melody, it sounds like this. Kurvan eveha karmani. You say it with me. Kurvan eveha karmani jijivishet chatam samaha jijivishet
chatam samaha
evam tvayi nanyate tosti
evam tvayi nanyate tosti
na karma lipyate nare
na karma lipyate nare.
On to the synonyms. Kurvan, doing continuously. Eva, thus. Iha, meaning during this span of our life. Karmani, pertaining to work. Jijivishet, one should desire to live. As in jiva, life itself. One should desire to live in a certain way. Shatam, 100. Sama, years. Evam, so living by that principle. Tvayi, unto you. Na, no. Anyata, alternative. Ita, from this path. Asti, there is na, not. Karma, work. Lipyate, can be bound. Nare, unto a man, unto a person. Translation of mantra 2. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. Now that way refers to the first mantra that we discussed yesterday. For that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. Now you may recall mantra 1, which is a kind of a call to refresh our relationship with the natural world. The speaker of the Isopanishad is reminding us that if we've understood how to see the true value of everything around us, then we would never want to abuse anything around us. Those two things don't fit together. The idea of becoming a more self-aware person means becoming a more other-aware person as well. So you cannot be selfless and selfish at the same time. It doesn't work. And if you cultivate that kind of a character, that kind of behavior in the world, of acknowledging the divinity of all life and working to enhance our relationship with those around us. Here, this mantra says, you can live a very long time like that. So what does it mean that you're going to live a long time like that? Well, what is it that shortens duration of life? Now, this is clinical evidence to this effect. Tension will shorten your duration of life. Stress, a sense of purposelessness, if you don't see any reason to go on, all these sort of toxic conditions can literally shave years off of our life. And the other way to be can enhance and extend life, living stress-free with an awareness of the other in our life. And it says here that that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. Well, there's three divisions of karma. I think we've discussed this before. There is karma, there is akarma, and vikarma. Vikarma means actions that are contrary to the best interests of all concerned. Sometimes it's described as actions that are not sanctioned by the revealed scriptures. That's harmful work. Akarma means anything that's done in a spirit of devotion under the guidance of a qualified teacher. You can't just do whatever you want and call it bhakti. It has to be done according to certain directions. And the word karma itself, which is often abused, does not refer to bad things that are material that will tie you down. That's called karma bandha. Karma, the word karma itself refers to engagement, and that can be of many different qualities. So the message coming through in this second mantra is, if you live in that way, feeling the relationship that we have with others, that will make for the most productive and enduring kind of life. It does sound hokey. If I say I love you, what do I mean by that? I know people who I've said I love you, and they don't know what to do with it, because we're so suspicious of love. We're so suspicious of anyone who presents herself or himself as putting my interest above their own. What kind of a person does that? How can someone actually set their own self-interests aside and make me more important? We're not accustomed to seeing that. That's not something that's nurtured in American culture today, nor is it nurtured in schools. There's some lip service given to community service, but ultimately, I know when I do a survey of students in my classes, 90% of them are there because they have this idea that with a college degree, they'll get a better job. So it's not an unselfish reason for being there. The acquiring of knowledge can be a tremendously selfish endeavor if it's knowledge that will be misused. So to just go a little bit more into this verse, there's a suggestion embedded in the message that we use every moment as a chance to exercise this prerogative for putting someone else's interests before our own. I want to read a quote to you from Carl Jung. Some of you may be familiar with Jung, who was in the early 20th century being groomed by Sigmund Freud to be his successor. And then they had a falling out, and so that didn't work. Jung, who founded the Jungian school of psychology or psychoanalysis, proposed a method for accessing experiences of our life on a deeper unconscious level. It's a Jungian psychology is a search for meaning behind behavior, behind emotions, through, for example, dream analysis, through terms that he coined, such as the collective unconscious, which says essentially there's something that binds us all together. Another word he proposed was individuation, the separating of the child from the parents or the parent figures in order to come into her own as a full-fledged adult. One of the things that Jung is known for is having broken the image of the therapist as a passive observer and listener to whatever it is that the analysand is the technical word, or the patient wishes to say. Jungian technique is a much more engaged two-way exchange between two people. So here is that quote from Jung. This has always struck me as extraordinarily profound. What if I should discover that the poorest of the beggars and the most imprudent of all offenders are all within me, and I stand in need of the alms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy who must be loved? What then? So this is a real existential challenge to confront our lives, to not take anything in our life for granted, allow every moment to be a point of deeper analysis and commentary. One of the things that I always admired about my teacher, Prabhupada, was he was able to go inside every experience of his life. He found meaning in the smallest little things. He would recall stories from childhood where, let me see, as a small example that comes to mind, his mother taught him that if any of the rice, any grains of rice fall on the ground from the plate, either your own plate or the plate that's offered to the deity of Krishna as the food is being sanctified, bend down, pick up that grain of rice and touch it to your forehead, because it is sacred. That one grain of rice that's been offered to God has become transformed. There's a transformation of energy such that this is no longer just a grain of rice. It's the repository of God's grace. Something as simple as that. He would always do that. He would look at things. We were on a morning walk in London, and we walked by a tree, and there were a lot of bird droppings beneath the tree. And he took his cane and he pointed to the bird droppings and says, "What is the meaning of this?" So we're all kind of asking ourselves, I don't know, is it like tea leaves or something in the configuration of the bird droppings? Or people are proposing all kinds of silly ideas. And he says, no, the meaning is that the same birds have been living in the same tree for a very, very long time. Even birds get attached to their homes. So he would see something and make a philosophical point out of it. He was, another time in London, he was on a morning walk, and Prabhupada used to brush his teeth with neem twigs. Now, neem trees don't grow in London, but in Hyde Park, you can find willow trees. And the end of a willow branch, if you break it off and kind of chew it between your teeth for a while, you can make fibers that become like a toothbrush. So that's how he would brush his teeth each day, was from these fibrous twigs. So he asked his helper, his assistant, can you please take one or two twigs? And so Nandu Kumar went up and broke one twig off, reached up, broke a second twig off. He was reaching up his hand to break a third twig from the tree, and Prabhupada waved him off and said, no, 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 no. Don't disturb more than necessary. Don't disturb more than necessary. Here he was thinking about the tree, not just as something that he can exploit because he needs something from it, but as a living being deserving of our respect and attention. I asked him a short time after that, what does a pure lover of God see when he looks at a tree? Now, obviously, I was referring to him from that walk in Hyde Park, but he was very humble and he kind of waved himself aside and he says, a pure soul, a pure devotee, a real Mahabhagavata, a real devotee looks at a tree and doesn't see just the tree form. He sees that this is a plant, a tree body, housing an eternal soul that has been somehow brought into this material environment. And then he doesn't stop there. He says, I see not just the soul within this tree body, but I see also within the heart of the soul, super soul. I see God in the heart of that living being. And so he said the devotee doesn't see exactly a tree. He sees God standing there. Well, that's what our yoga, our meditation, our therapy, if you will, can bring to our understanding of not taking anything in this world for granted, but embracing everything as a gift and finding, even in the smallest little everyday event or object, a source of ecstatic inspiration for devotion to Sri Krishna. Okay, there you go. Now I'm going to open this up for some questions because I learned the hard way not to talk too long. We ran over by about 10 minutes yesterday.
I was going to say, when I was younger in Bhakti, even when, like, for example, being in the temple, and being immersed in the daily life, it's sort of less noticeable because you're so busy and you have so many services and things to do. And then I felt that it was wise for me, since I did not have a Brahminical temperament, to move outside the temple, and seek ways to engage myself, in other ways. And that's when I really started to notice all, the attachments and the anartas and the kind of sort of dragging of feet in a way that I had, almost this kind of fear to go deeper into bhakti, because I kept thinking, or I kept feeling somehow that I was going to be missing out, or that I was going to be losing something, by embracing Krishna more fully. At the same time, I think there's something to be said by not false surrendering, because if you surrender falsely and it's not real, you're going to fall down in a big way. I mean, it's going to be
said.
A hard
Very well
fall.
said, yeah. Now, don't pretend to be more advanced in your understanding of things than you are. It can get you in trouble. We've seen that often. People will come for a while and they think they've understood something, and then because it's not grounded on a firm foundation of study and the daily practices, they end up going away.
I'm interested in what are the prescribed duties. So here we have, I think it's the first or second paragraph, it says, the living entity has no work for its livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to his prescribed duties, he transgresses the law of nature and binds himself more and more. So my question is, what are the prescribed duties and how do we know what our prescribed duties are?
Wow, okay. The term prescribed duty, or in Sanskrit, svadharma, the righteous behavior that is unique to you, used to have much more prominence in the community than it does today. There was a time when young people would go to live in the school of their teacher, the ashram of their guru, and because they would be there 24/7, the guru would come to know each of them quite closely and would be able to advise when it came time for things like career decisions or partnering or where to live or which ashram to stay in. Because there would have been a relationship established. But we don't have that today. And we're more or less left to fend for ourselves. And the consequence of that is, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who really don't like their jobs. They have to pay bills, and this is what they've found. But it's not necessarily their svadharma. It's not necessarily what they would do that would make them happy and feel fulfilled and making a contribution. Those things are just as important as the financial remuneration of a job or a career.
You had a question in chat?
Let's see. Your question is, so if we are honest and fair, then we are not bonded by karma. Okay, that's interesting. Honest and fair. I'm not sure that honest and fair are sufficient grounds for transcending the bondage of karma. Honesty is a critical foundational quality in spiritual life. Fairness, you might draw a synonym from that with compassion. To be fair toward others, you have to be willing to understand life from their point of view. So those are all wonderful qualities, but they don't necessarily exempt us from the consequences of what we're doing. That requires training. Again, it's a longer subject. Each of these topics is a very profound idea. To transcend the bonds of karma requires a sincere effort at transposing every act of our life into a gesture of devotion to God. That's if you want a summary answer. And that may not mean that we're always going to be fair. There's a utilitarian principle involved here, Ananda Vilas Prabhu. As you well know through your profession, sometimes, let's say, for example, you're sacrificing the safety and security of your family because you're helping hundreds of people in your hospital by analyzing their tests. Well, is that fair? It's not fair to your family. So sometimes doing the right thing, following our svadharma, is a very, very difficult choice to make. And it may not seem from the outside as though it's conforming to some high standard of spiritual activity or religious character. Be careful about judging things from the outside. We never really quite know what's going on.
A couple of days ago, probably, can you hear me now?
Yes.
2 weeks ago, when this all panic started, I saw the nurses, the doctors, the frontline workers. I caught the stress. I thought like 2 weeks ago, what's happening to me? Usually I don't respond in that way. So that stress from all over, like I was panicking myself like 2 weeks ago.
Unfortunately, our main source of information, of course, you're there in person, you're seeing it. The main source of information for most of us is the news channels, and they tend to sensationalize because that's how they get the ratings and the advertising dollars and so on. The PBS and the NPR are the rare exceptions where there's real journalism, not just reporting, but real journalism, some in-depth analysis of things. And if there's too much exposure to the commercial media accounts, that will exacerbate the stress. I think we really have to be very, very careful about and very judicious in our use of screen time, particularly now. We're susceptible to whatever information we're receiving, and that information is not always accurate or complete. But certainly you have the appreciation of everybody here in our little Gita Wisdom group for everything that you're doing. Oh, Sandra. Hare Krishna.
Hare
What's your-
Krishna. My comment was back to what you were saying about why we don't go deeper and why do we, and I was just remembering my early days in our Gita wisdom classes and just showing up. And there were a couple of things. One is I'm a perfectionist, and the other thing was my habit pattern is to dive into religious sects and and get very deep into them. I was Orthodox Jewish for over 20 years. And one of the things that I realized is that with patience and with practicing what I could do, took that pressure off of me. And I don't remember exactly what it was you said in one of our groups, but I found what worked for me. And I made the choice to just be patient with myself and do what I could. And I learned a lot about myself, and also learned that I am a person that has a hard time being consistent. And I had to stop beating myself over the head that, you're not a bhakti because you're not consistent, and I had to get up each day and let each day be new and see how I could handle it, and see what I could do. And whatever I could do has been amazing. And it doesn't mean that I have to live in an ashram or I have to live in New York.
That's it for today. We're going to wish you all, as always, a very lovely evening. Join me, if you would, in the Vaishnav Pranam mantra. Vansya kalpa tarubhyasya kripa sindhu vajevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you all. So nice to have your company like this, even for just a little while each day. My favorite part of the day. Get to see you all again. Thank you. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hi, Bol, Shri Rupa.
That was beautiful.